all through that time, franchising has never done for the franchisor, which franchisors do for franchisees. The franchisor business model has never been codified. You really think about that. The IFA represents, 790,000 franchise establishments, depending on who you believe. There's anywhere between 4,000 and 7,000 franchise brands, but nobody's invented the franchisor model the way franchisors have codified their models. So it's a bunch of us who've been around a long time, codifying our little niches in the world, and then it's kind of really up to the franchisor to cobble everything together and kind of jerry-rig a franchisor model out of that, or just figure it out on their own. So that's what we're looking to accomplish. So we're going to teach you guys and go through is our system, that we've refined, working with about 100. I stopped counting at 140 brands, and we brought in thousands of franchisees on behalf of our client companies. So franchising, anybody who's a career franchise development guy, you've seen the business model, the business of recruiting franchisees getting more complex as things become more self-directed. I think that what the franchise recruitment community as a general rule has not kept up with the complexity of the buyer journey. We still have all the responsibility. We just don't know all the complexity. So, if we've been happy to kind of farm some of our job responsibilities out, and I think that's to our own detriment. So we're going to talk about we're going to learn franchising end to end, starting with the whole buyer journey, like with the question, hey, maybe do I want to start a franchise? We're going to study it all the way through to the point of them signing an agreement, stroking a franchise fee check. I'm going to talk about it from the franchisor's perspective because that's bulk of what's on here. So the franchise consultants and brokers are on the phone. You can extrapolate. A lot of it will cross over. Some of it won't. And we could have some sidebar discussions afterwards. But happy that you're all here. I broke this down into 20 sessions. This session is not one of the 20. This is one of the intros. I'll show you in a bit. And it's really dedicated to you. Just to kind of help you master your craft and leave, franchising. We were talking about at the beginning of the call. Anybody heard that? It was, I was going back and forth with Leslie Cuban, a legend in the franchise broker community, who said her crossover point is she's now older than her candidates. Some of us have already experienced that, right? So, we just want to leave franchising better off than we found it. Just clean up the campsite and leave it better than you found it, as my old partner used to say. So there's going to be 20 modules. They're all going to be somewhere between 45 minutes an hour. We're going to start at 1 Eastern time. We're going to finish by 2. We're going to be really tight on time schedules. I'm going to lead most of it. I'm going to invite, I think, different content experts as we go through these different modules to help me. My background this is pretty much all I've ever done. My first job out of school when I was 21 years old was recruiting franchisees for Subway when they had about 375 restaurants. When I started, they were in about 17, maybe 20 states. And I used to handle objections like, hey, boy, this is Alabama. We don't eat Yankee food in Alabama. Subway will never work here. Or why did you name Subway after some of the most filthy places you could be in New York City? Why would anyone ever want to eat here? Like, those are the objections I used to have to handle as it relates to Subway. They were kind of laughable when you look back on it now. And then I've been doing it independently. Started my company consultancy 22 years ago to just codify the franchisee recruitment model. The other person that you'll be with is Arsh Kazi, representing the new generation of franchisee recruiting professionals, hence the sunglasses. So Arsh has been with me a bunch of years. He specializes in the digital marketing and lead generation, and then also does all our project management as it relates to the websites we design, all the collateral we design for the Fran Dev, and he's customer facing, helping us gather all the assets and keeping all the collateral moving, taking on all our creative projects. So we're really happy that Arsh is going to be helping us moderate these sessions and be one of your primary contacts for anything that you need from here. Arsh, you want to say hello or say anything about
yeah. Definitely, yeah. Pleasure to meet everyone here. Arsh Kazi. I've been with Franchise Performance Group for almost 3 years now. I've done a lot of lead generation on Facebook. We've done a lot on LinkedIn, also on Google as well. So a lot of learning experiences that happened in there. A lot of technology work around there as well to nurture the leads down into the sales pipeline and making things smoother there. So a lot of the work that I've been working with Joe on, it's been just around lead gen and strategies and funnel building. So I do enjoy working on the marketing side of that.
And when we get into lead generation, all we do is lead gen for Fran Dev. What I found is that if you follow the Google and Facebook and some digital marketing best practices, a lot of that is a failed strategy as it relates to investment opportunities, big scale investment opportunities. So you can't recruit hamburger chain franchisee with the same tactics that you use to sell hamburgers. So we're going to break that down in great detail when we get there. So if you know the toolbar in the bottom, there's a little chat box. I'd like you guys to just tap into the chat. Who are you? What company are you with? How many years of franchise sales experience you have? And what do you want to take away over the next 20 sessions? Just type it right in. The chat box should be on the toolbar a little to the right. There's an eye, then there's a little icon with 2 people, and then it looks like a little cartoon balloon. That's the chat box. So if you could put that in, please answer these questions, hit enter. This would be the interactive part. Good. So we got Leslie, we got Jake's Hamburgers, Kevin. Okay, good. Who else? Joel, thank you. Chris, thank you. Damon, thank you. Oh, Travis, Pizza Forno. I like that concept. Eve, thank you. Joe Davis, good seeing you again. Joe Davis is one of my partners in a family office, private equity firm. Adrian Cool, thank you. Frank Dunn. Also been around a long time. Carl Morningstar. Another person. Kevin and I've worked together in the past. Tom McCarthy, thank you. Brooks. Brooks been around a long, long time with Express. Kevin Shaw, great. Tom Monahan. We worked together at Moto Photo back when there was 35 millimeter film. Tyler, good talking to you again with Basecamp. Tyler and his brother just acquired a year or 2 years ago Uptown Cheapskate and Kid to Kid from the group and the founders in Salt Lake City. Jay Perry, excellent. Christian Colucci. I grew up with a bunch of Colucci's in New Haven, Connecticut. I wonder if any relation. So thank you guys very much. So we got a lot of experience. And Danny Lyon, thank you. A lot of experienced franchise professionals here. That's fantastic. So thank you for that. Okay. So on ours, between Arsh and I, we're 40 plus years experience. And here's what we want to take away. We want to promote a more ethical and responsible way of recruiting franchisees that really puts the franchise candidate at the center and shows great respect for the time, money, energy, and what's at risk. Because I do think as I go to these events, I think we're losing sight of that, and it actually concerns me as it relates to the future of franchising. So the admission, there is no admission, so everything's free. Okay, so we believe in the kind of being in the first give position. So we want to give to you our intellectual property, and then in turn, what we request is that you just pay it forward. Just pick somebody each week and do something for that person that you wouldn't normally do. That's just nice and kind, and will make them feel good about themselves. Hopefully, that's not too big of an ask. So every week we'll end up with just assign a dollar value to whatever you think you got out of it, and then just pay that forward. Okay, we all in agreement on that? Just yell yes if we're all cool on that. Okay. Now, the only thing we're going to ask you to do is just be all in. There's a lot of experience in here in this group. And what you're going to, anything anybody's ever going to want to come up against in franchise development, even if I wasn't here, probably has already been resolved with the people that are on this call right now. So your collective genius, I think, is critically important to the overall value being delivered on this topic. So I'm going to ask you guys, when we start every week, just for 1 hour, shut off the phones, don't look at email, turn off the texting, and then you just contribute to your fellow professional the best you can with your intention, with your experience, with your stories. I would appreciate that. So I'm going to get into the agenda now. All right. So next session, which is going to be 2 weeks from now, same time, we're going to dissect the buyer journey. So why do we want to do that? Because our franchise sales process doesn't mirror somebody's franchise buying process. Okay, then it's suboptimal. So we're going to start with how and why do people buy, and we're going to look at every step they take, every piece of information they gather, all the questions that they ask. Okay, and then we're going to hold up the candle. Do our recruitment processes, our sales process, actually reflect their buying process and give them what they want when they want it, so they don't resist it, or they don't go outside of it to get their questions answered, where we lose the role of kind of gatekeeper and a helpmate as it relates to their buy decision. Then we're going to get into some management. So how do you plan and budget and know that your budget is actually resourcing the objective at hand? So we have tools and spreadsheets that we're going to discuss and we can hand out so you can run some numbers yourself. Then we're going to start looking at Fran Dev almost the same way the buyer does. So it's going to start with, what are my options? I think I want to buy a franchise. What are my options? So one of the first places you're going to start going is you're going to start Googling. Okay, so how does actually Google work? I'll tell you a quick story. Would be we were brought in to audit an agencies, one of the largest agencies that does lead gen for franchisors, Fran Dev lead gen, and it was a maid service kind of brought us in, and they had 150 leads from Google. 148 of them came off of consumer terms. So not only were they not Fran Dev lead gen, their Fran Dev was using the budget to compete against their consumer spend. And because people were filling out the contact form, the franchisor, the Google was a big black box. They really couldn't do anything about it. So we're going to show you what's inside the black box called Google. So when you're working with your digital agency, they can't, run their shtick and their jive. Send you crap leads, knowing that they're going to send you crap leads. So to get you to see the strategy thing. Second is Facebook. We're going to get into Facebook best practices. I'm often at conferences and I hear nobody's doing Facebook deals. Arsh, that's probably 50% of our development, right?
That's correct. Yes.
We kind of toggle back and forth. What are our best vehicles on the digital spend side? it's either Google or Facebook is one or two. So I don't know what other people are doing that the results are so poor. I can't tell you. I'm going to show you what we do again, so you get a seat at the strategy table, how and why it works well, and why you are. If you're not getting results with Facebook, it's probably strategy and not Facebook. Third, the week after that, we're going to get into franchise broker networks, best practices. Leslie, I'll probably ding you on that one to co-host on that. So block that day out. So Leslie with Fran, that is one of the top brokers in the country and is very good at articulating what she does well and very good at articulating what franchisors need to be prepared to do to get the attention of people like her. So then we're going to get to franchise portals. So I do think portals have a seat at the table. Not the first place I put money. Generally the third or fourth place, but they do have a seat at the table and deals get done with portals. I will tell you, portals seem to be in the business of generating contact information as opposed to leads. And they expect franchisors to nurture and create leads out of the contact information they generate. And we'll talk about what that disconnect look like and how a franchisor needs to be prepared to work with portal leads. We're going to get into LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is pretty specialized. It's really, if you're very good at recruiting from certain industries, certain job descriptions, or you have a B2B concept, like with Sandler Sales Training is one of our clients, and a big portion of our budget is allocated towards LinkedIn. Then we're going to stop. We're just kind of like open Q&A is next week. I just want to know what you guys are struggling with. And what you're seeing out in the world, and so maybe we could design a future module for that, and then we're going to move off of lead generation, move into lead nurturing, right? So now you have the contact information, but you may or may not be in contact with them. So what are content you can immediately send the franchise candidate to break down any barriers to contact or meeting you or speaking with you that might exist? So I think there's two forms of lead generation. There's a 15-day program to basically get you on the phone with them or in a video meeting. And then there's kind of lead nurturing. We call them kind of life support, nurturing programs where you can drip them just to stay front of mind. So when they're ready to engage, that they're contacting you first as opposed to another chain. And I will tell you, in 40 years of working franchise leads, never once have I ever heard, when I asked the question, have you looked at anything else? Never once have I heard, no, this is my first franchise I've ever looked at, ever. Right? So I think the key, so a dead lead in your database is an active lead in somebody else's. So I think that's really key and underutilized is lead nurturing content. Then we're going to get into franchise sales process design. So like I've got 3 deliverables going on right now where we're designing franchisee recruitment processes end to end. So I think that's one of the areas we do particularly well in, not only designing the conversations, but designing the content that supports the conversations. So it's how do you put together a franchisee recruitment process? Our philosophy would be more educational. We want the entrepreneur to go into business with their eyes wide open. We want to design contents around their most common objections, right? So they can stay into problem solving and don't kick out because of irrational fears or make uninformed decisions. And then we also want to pace the deal right. So a lot of franchisors will move people prematurely into discovery day, and then we're not done with the franchisee validation. So emotionally, they peak too early, and they start emotionally declining, and then they try to close off to that suboptimally. So I do think deal pacing and emotional pacing has to be built into the process, and then also timing. So the average person who actually does the deal, is 120 days. So, or thereabouts. The low entry cost businesses or more complex deals might take longer. Low entry costs might be shorter. Financing can elongate the process, but you want to build a process consistent with what people do when they're buying. Okay, then we're going to, once they understand what the process is, the flow, then we're going to start moving into different steps of the process. So we're going to talk about interview and presentation, that very important first meeting that sets the hook. I will tell you, I've mystery shopped hundreds of franchise sales guys, and I use Arsh as a mystery shopper. I just outed you, Arsh. Probably can't use you anymore. Arsh, have you ever been effectively interviewed in your mystery shops?
Not once.
Not once.
No.
I will tell you, in 20 years, I have never, not one time, had a mystery lead, be effectively interviewed. I'm defining effectively interviewed as you understand who they are as a person, what they're looking to accomplish, what their concerns are, what their background is, what their skills are, what their desires are, what their financial objectives are. And so you can start piecing together whether or not you're a fit. They're a fit. It's never happened in 20 years. So we're going to talk about, it's the lost art. We're going to talk about effective interviewing. And then presentation, right? So we would say people don't buy the business. They want a result, right? So it's how does the business satisfy their concerns? How do you deploy their capital? How do they deploy their skills in a way that gives them the highest opportunity for success? How they define success and mitigates risk at the same time. When we're mystery shopping, the franchisor rep just wants to talk about the business as if it's what people are buying and never trying to connect the people to the business. So you're going to see people don't really buy a business. They buy their own story of how their lives and careers and financial situation will change if they did business with you. But franchisors don't know how to tell the story as a general rule. Okay. Then we're going to talk about franchisee validation. I think we could be very strategic in franchisee validation, and we need to be more strategic. Goes back to interviewing on what are franchise candidates hearing and what are they making that feedback mean. So is that feedback furthering the deal? Did they hear the candidate right? As there's misinformation being circulated? Are they talking to the right people? Are we making good strategic recommendations? We're going to talk about that. And how many candidates should be they calling? Like, how do you actually wind down franchisee validation when you know that they're not getting any more meaningful information? They're just either calling to call or they're calling to try to blow the deal up. Then we're going to talk about what the shrinks do. I will tell you, I've lost more deal flow to irrational fare than I ever had to anything solid wrong with the business model. Right. So early in my career, I hired psychologists to sit down with me, and I used to tell them, look, I'll pay you by the hour. How do you get people up ladders? How do you get them on roofs? How do you get them in airplanes? How do you get people acting rationally? There's very specific techniques for that. So we're going to learn those techniques, and we're going to role play them. Okay. Then we're going to talk about Discovery Day. Would be 15 and 16. Like, that's the money day. So virtual Discovery days probably won't close as well as face-to-face meetings, so they're more invested. And sometimes they happen a little early in the process. But how do you close at least more than 50% of the people that attend virtual and 85% of the people that attend in person? And what does that day need to look like? Then we're going to talk about financing and development agreements. IFA at one time, it did a study and showed that 90% of multi-unit development agreements don't happen as scheduled. So shame on us as a community that we're almost every time we sign one of those deals, we're putting they're putting their money at risk because they don't get what they want. And I think a lot of that has to do with the skills of the recruiter. They don't understand cash flow. They don't understand how to put together development agreements. They don't understand the pacing. they just don't care. They put people on unrealistic development schedules that the operations doesn't support. So we're going to look at how do you align operations, capital structure, their skills and experience, demand for the concept to put together sound and achievable franchise development agreements that are in the best interest of both the franchisor and the franchise candidate. Okay. Then we're going to pause. And then week 18, I want to hear what you guys are hearing. So we'll be practicing all these new techniques, have all these new skills, have all these new ways of approaching business. What's working? What isn't? What else should we be talking about? What else should we be doing to help further your career? So 2 open sessions. Then we're going to talk about content creation and brand storytelling. Which is how people process information is in storyboard form, right? And more of the business is becoming self-directed, which we'll talk about shortly. So more and more of what you're doing is you're going to need to know how to create content, okay? And then mystery shopping, all right? So we'll break everybody down into our own mystery shopping pods, so we can mystery shop each other according to our mystery shopping process. So you can get a real world grading on from your peer group and what you're doing well, and then where you professionally need work. So you can get to the next level. So that's what the 20 modules looks like. It's robust. I don't know if anybody's ever put together anything like this before, but I'm very happy that anybody who's with us right now, hopefully you're a career franchisee recruitment professional, hopefully you're a junkie like we are. And then hopefully that you'll contribute as much as you'll put in as much as you're taking out for the benefit of all of us. Okay. Meeting times twice a month. So every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, 1 p.m. Eastern time, on that link that somehow I was struggling to send out to you guys on Fran Connect. Now that you have it, it will be the same link. And I'll pull a ticket on Fran Connect and understand whether platform is corrupting links. But it's going to be the same link, so we won't have this problem again and again. So just put that time in as a recurring setting. So 20 sessions, second and fourth week. Block it out. It'll begin and end within an hour. And then we're going to create a certification. I'll promote it, and I'll promote you guys with whatever social platform you think I have. So we'll come up with a certification relative to the Franchise Sales and Lead Generation Academy graduate certification. So as you move on in your career, hopefully that will give you more advantages. So hopefully it'll give you a seat at the table with strategy and budgeting, and then hopefully it will add value in salary and commissions. So not only we do more, I'd like to see you more promotable. Okay. So I'm going to stop there, and now we're actually going to get into some of the modules. So where I'm a bit disheartened is on the philosophy and what we're rewarding as relating to the franchisor community. So what I see is that there's 2 approaches to this job, 2 mindsets, 2 paradigms. Okay. One is a philosophy of sales. So we hire salespeople. It's more transactional. We don't really look at the franchise candidate as a person. We look at them as an agreement waiting to be signed. We don't focus them on a person, and when we do focus, it's really on their buying signals, as opposed to whether or not they're a fit. We don't have straight conversations. We kind of accentuate the positives of the business. We try to hide the negatives, or we downplay it. And, we operate kind of from a feature benefit close kind of mentality. We get the deal done, okay, and then we kick it to operations and make it operations problem. That's one way to do in business. And franchisors have been successful over periods of time doing it that way, but When I do see failure on the franchisor side, or I do see a brand meltdown, generally you can bring it back to recruiting mistakes, and they can often bring it back to the philosophy, flawed philosophy, which recreated, the recruiting mistakes in the first place. And then second would be more like executive recruiting. Like if you, I'll give you an example. I was working with, franchise sales guys are pack animals, right? We all hang out together. We always did. And I was sitting with the vice president of franchise sales for a very large automotive franchise. And he had boldly made the statement that he will give anybody their God-given right to fail. He's kind of one of those real old school, oily, shystery, old school franchise sales guys. And later in the conversation, he was talking about how he was having a brutal time finding an administrative assistant to help him run the department. So my answer was, why don't you just grab the first person you see and give them their God-given right to fail? Problem solved. Which he didn't think was very funny. I thought it was kind of hilarious. But anyway, so I got a big laugh out of it. He got pissed off, and but it just goes to show you the hypocrisy of somebody who takes the sales philosophy to that logical extreme when it doesn't pertain to them, when they have to fill in needs for their own departments, right? So maybe it shouldn't pertain to our franchise candidates either. Maybe it's in their best interest for them to go with the chain they have the highest probability of success with, and we shouldn't be an impediment to that. So I'm going to ask you to couple questions. Fill in the chat box. Based on these two philosophies, what do you think's in the franchise candidate's best interest? But even more, if you really think it through, what's in the franchisor's best interest? Put it in the chat box. Recruitment. Okay, recruiting. Should be recruiting all day. Recruiting. Yep, being profitable. Got it. Okay. So it sounds like we're kind of really on board. I'm probably, I think there might be some salesmanship inside of recruiting. So I'm not going to throw out the whole sales model completely and totally. But I think on balance in the background, and what we're going to be talking about, even through lead gen, through content strategy, website design, anything, it's all going to be done inside the paradigm of recruiting and building long-term relationship and focusing on fit. We're franchisees, as somebody wrote that, at the end of the day, have the highest probability of success as measured in profitability. Okay. And then there's external factors that we have to contend with. If we're going to move into a recession, and Bloomberg said we had a 50% chance of being in recession by Q1 2024, they got it wrong, right? So what market are we really in, right? Are we in the calm before the storm? Are we going to move into a recession? I mean, I never saw the bull market coming. Bloomberg never saw the bull market coming. It is a full employment economy. Anything at 4% unemployment's considered full employment, and the cost of money really has probably the highest since the 70s. I don't know if in my career I've ever seen an 11.5% SBA notes, right? And you can't pass that off to the consumer in price. It just erodes margin and increases risk. Stock market volatility, even when the stock market runs up, right? People are going to hang on because they want to know what else are they missing, right? Or if the market's cratering, if you start the gigantic dips, dips rather, you're going to wait till it comes back so they can recoup whatever perceived losses they think they have. So it's so stock market instability and volatility creates freezes, right, and kind of messes with the continuity of the franchisee recruitment process, and we got to contend with that. We also have to contend with runaway inflation. So the cost of goods and services on average is up 18%. Not if you buy milk, not if you buy eggs. Way higher. Eggs, I think, I was buying eggs 2 years ago for 99 cents for 12. And now I moved to Florida. Their Publix is over $3. 300% increase. Crazy. We can't pass 300% increases off to the customer. So what it does at the end of the day, it erodes margins because the customer, because they're facing inflation, they've got less dollars to spend. So if you pass off all of it to the customer, it's gonna reflect in your revenues. So there's that balancing act. But on balance, I've seen most of our clients, we're seeing their margins eroding, which means they're not producing the returns they used to. Okay, yes, the cost of startup is going up, returns are going down as a general rule, right? So that creates more risk, less reward, and less of a case to move forward. So we have to watch our cost of goods sold and supply lines. More on the cost of money. So interest rates on mortgages. The good news is people are staying in their houses longer, so more equity. The inflation really, in a good way, drove up home prices. So a lot of people are sitting on a ton of equity, but it costs a lot more than it used to take that equity out and translate that into business. Unemployment rate. So like I'm working with Sandler, I was telling you that, so for college educated women and men, the unemployment rate is 1.6%. So they've got jobs. So there's huge opportunity cost that we have to factor into our investments. So I'm working with Sandler, and one of the good things about Sandler, and we're doing lead generation, we're recruiting people that are accustomed to making on the low side of 200 to 400 or 500,000 $1 million a year, becoming Sandler franchisees. But that's factored into the startup. So instead of $100,000 investment, people are evaluating it as if it's a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 investment because that's the opportunity cost. So we have to be really intelligent in how we position our brand, and we also should probably factor economic reality into our offerings and de-risk it as much as we possibly can and incentivize people joining us as much as humanly possible. Okay. So my question to you would be, what's your impact? What's the impact of the economy on your overall franchisee recruitment results? So I set up a poll, which I've never done. So I'm going to hopefully we'll get this right. Harsh, do you have poll 4 up? Because I'm not seeing it.
Yes. Let me see if I can get that.
All right, we're back to using the chat box. I'm gonna make an executive. Okay, so we answer. Okay, is your 2024 franchisee recruitment results? Just put in the chat box. Is it going to be less than the as 23, the same as 23, or more than 23? What are you estimating? Put that right in the chat box. That'd be great. So flat. Tom says more. Flat. Less. Same or more for Chris. Same or okay, more, same. Big down or flat, more. So you're seeing real inconsistency, but if I had to say what's the exception, what's the rule? I think the rule is up. Pardon me, rule it would be flat or down, and then the exception would be more. Okay. And then we also have to look at, has the buyer journey changed? And I would be one that it has. So when we could measure right now with the iPhone going incognito and people researching on businesses on multiple platforms, it's hard to track internet buyer behavior end to end. But there was a time where we could. So we could capture the IP address of anybody who bought a franchise and then recreate their electronic buyer journey. And then, for instance, an average buyer, not a lead, but a buyer used to spend 3.5 hours on the site we designed, and they would on average come in for 18 visits. That doesn't include downloadable information that was available from the web. Include that, it'd be over 4 hours of content. So if that's what buyers do, and this is, and their appetites for information have increased, not decreased, right? If that's what buyers do. You got to look at your own website and say, do I even have 3 or 4 hours worth of content on the website? Because that's what the buyers are telling us they want. Right? So my question to you is from what's called the buyer journey, everything from, I think I want to start a franchise to the point where they actually sign the franchise agreement and stroke a check. Let's call that the buyer journey. In your estimation, what percentage of the buyer journey is self-directed? In other words, they're gathering information, making decisions on their own, reading stories on their own. And what percentage of the buyer journey happens after they contact you? So now you're in conversation. Put that in the chat box. What percentage do you think is self-directed? 20, 50, 50, 50, 40, 50, 50, interesting, 50, 15, 25%, 40, 50, 60, 42, 52. Okay, that's funny. 40. That's kind of where I would be. So I'll tell you, nobody really knows, but we're designing to 30 to 50%. And Monahan made the comment, depending on the brand. We're designing 30 to 50% depending on the brand. With more towards the 50 if I had to pick a rule. Because not only when you're designing, you got to design to where things are going, not where they've been, right? So if you're going to err on the side of content strategy, err by offering the candidate too much, because eventually that's what they're going to want. It's moving in that direction. What does Google say? Google estimates that 70% of people who buy high ticket, so for them, high ticket is anything over $500, and emotionally engaged, like identity type purchases. We have things that people really relate to emotionally. So in that their world might be big screen TV, it would be a car, it would be a home, right? It's already 70%. I don't think franchising is 70% yet, largely because we don't have the content streams people could trust. So if you're going to buy a home, you got Zillow, you got realtor.com. The entire site is designed to satisfy every question a home buyer could ask, up to the point of being ready. Before Zillow and realtor.com, there was a thing called the MLS. You contact a real estate agent early in the process. They take out the LMS and then they chose what houses you're going to see, and you don't have access to the universe of houses that are available. Well, that flipped on its head with the advent of Google and with the advent of Zillow and related sites. Now the real estate agent is who you call last. They're last in the buying process. Okay, and then the average franchise home buyer rather is telling the real estate agent which house will show me. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so regardless whether it's 30, whether it's 50, whether it's 70, or whatever it is, right? Your content is going to earn you or cost you the conversation. You are no longer the gatekeeper of your brand story any more than a real estate agent is a gatekeeper of the home inventory. Your story's told online, and it's cobbled together. It's on the website, it's on social streams, it's wherever it is. And that's what they're going to get to. That's what they're going to read. That's what they're going to process. Okay. And that's what they're going to use to determine whether or not they're ever going to talk to you. And that's, that could be a pretty disempowering place. if you're not in control of your content streams or you don't have a seat at the table. So just quick question. I'm going to ask you, just kind of 3 basic questions. You don't have to answer because for some reason we'll got to go get the polling straight. But ask yourself, if Google's not converting, can you actually go into Google Analytics in the back end and identify what the problem is? Yes, no. Second is, if your franchise opportunity, the most important tool that you have in franchising, if that's not converting or it's suboptimal, like our sites convert at 2% or better, the national average is 1%. Now, why aren't you converting at 2? Can you go into your site and say, this is the reason it's not converting? This is what we need to do to double the lead flow, organic lead flow, most likely to buy off our website? Yes, no. Then third, let's assume you hear a new objection and it's killing deal flow. Well, whatever deal flow is being killed when you're talking to them, multiply that significantly. It's getting killed before you talk to them, right? Can you actually have the ability to create an 800-word blog, which is what Google optimizes for, 300 to 800 words? Can you write a blog? Can you do it in a couple hours and make it impactful? So that objection can materially go away, or it can be addressed on your site. Then post it on your site where franchise candidates can find it. Do we know how to do that? Yes, no. These are the things that we're going to address, right? Because most franchise sales guys, the answer is no to these. Then you got to look at, well, how they structure in the department, right? So they hire lead generations, an ad agency, digital agency to generate leads. They might hire one of the PR firms to generate content and design websites and to post blogs. And then they have a franchise sales team to work whatever leads come out of that. But the inherent conflict is people that generate the leads have never worked the lead. They don't know the art of the deal. They've never sat in your chair. They don't know what it takes. The people who design websites, they're designing websites for how to sell bicycles and how to sell cups of coffee, not how to appeal to the needs of a $500,000 an investor is going to put up $500,000 and write personal guarantee on a lease for another $1 million. They don't know that audience. You do. Okay. But because you don't know their world and they don't know your world, there's a bunch of firewalls that are set up. I will tell you, in the buyer journey, as far as the buyer is concerned, there's no firewalls. It's one consistent buyer journey. So we get dysfunctional results by the dysfunctional way that we set up the whole franchise sales process and what we do to support ourselves in the journey. But the major problem is, well, what do you get out of it? I will tell you, everything on here is stuff I've taken down when I take a client on. These are all real. Yeah, kind of quick story. I remember the CEO of this t-shirt, silk screen t-shirt business. You would know the brand. Yeah, I remember when he came and he goes, look what I got. It just shows me this, this die cut of a brochure they were sending candidates. It's, they own a t-shirt business that fits you like a tee. He's like, what do you think? I'm from New England and I don't know. I just don't pull punches. I said, I would, how many did you print up? And he goes, about 1,000. I said, I would create a dumpster fire and throw them all on there and don't send one out. And he's like, well, why? I said, how do you know your business isn't like a tee? Never talked to them. It's inherently not credible. So we have a saying in our digital firm, like clever doesn't cut it. Like everybody wants to be clever. Who doesn't want to be clever? The buyer. They just want you to shoot straight. They want to be informed. And it starts with the advertising and continues through the content streams. So the end result is who here, right? On the just yes, no, put in the chat box. Yes, you have 100% responsibility for the franchise sales department results, or no, you don't. But most of you will not have 100% authority over the buyer journey. And that's a problem. most dysfunctional situation you could get into, and I'll tell you, as a consultant and as a vendor, I live there, right? I have all the responsibilities for results we got to achieve, and I can't make decisions. I can only give advice, right? But I'm responsible, for results. So the worst situation you could ever get into is to have 100% of the responsibility for the result and less and no authority, right? So if you had 100% responsibility and 100% of authority, this is how your department would be set up. Everything would tuck in under franchise sales. You'd be over strategy, how the brand stories be told, how the offer is being presented to the marketplace, what's marketable, what isn't, how do you adjust the numbers, content, so how you communicate the brand story online, electronically, in the media, and then lastly, lead generation, right? So what vehicles and what messages are supporting you, okay, in the buy journey, okay, and what needs to be redone and turned off. That's what it looks like, as opposed to those firewalls we saw before, right? In the chat box, because this is what I'm hoping for you and what I'm trying to design for you on your behalf is to get you to the point where you can accept 100% responsibility and be offered 100% of the authority. So if you don't have 100% authority, tell me just quickly, what would that be like for you? What would change? What would be different? Okay, if you had 100% responsibility and 100% authority, what would that be like for you? And do you even want that? Put that in the chat box. We got a breath of fresh air. Thank you, Damon. And can you do it? Yeah, I will tell you, I just turned 60 a few months ago, back in August, more than a few months ago. Nobody at 60 years old wants to be Google certified, right? Not my goal, as a professional franchisee recruiter, but had to do it, right? So, so if I can do it in my late 50s at the time, then you can do it. And it makes a big difference. Once I got into the Google certification, I understood how Google and its advertising vehicles work. I saw that the agencies I was hiring on behalf of my clients didn't have it right. So what came out of that was our own playbooks that are kind of unique to us on how we approach Google, how we approach Facebook, and other these advertising vehicles. And we're going to get into that as part of these modules. Okay. So we're going to be wrapping up in a second. So next session, we're going to get into the buyer journey. So we're going to take I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm the guy that reduces everything down to the subatomic level and makes you look at it, and then put these atoms back together like pieces of a puzzle. Make sure it's put together right. So I'm going to apologize in advance if that's not how you learn, but it's 100% how I teach. So I'm going to apologize in advance for that, because we're going to scrutinize the buyer journey in great detail in the next one. So homework assignments every week. I'm going to try to leave you with something to do or practice or observe to try to make this work more impactful. So start out with do something nice for somebody else. That would be really cool. Okay. But here's the written homework assignment. Written. Okay. If you were going to buy your own deal and you didn't know what your deal was, right? In other words, you're the franchise candidate. What questions would you need answered before you would talk to you? That's a really interesting question. So I'm going to ask it again, right? If you were going to buy your own deal and you didn't know what the business was, what would your information demands be? What questions would you need answered? What questions would you have on your own business? Okay, that you'd want addressed before you ever talk to you. So that's number one. And then I want you to look at your content. is your content reflective of that? Does it answer those questions? Does it address those concerns? Is that information easily found? Is it told in a compelling way? That's your homework assignment. I'm going to ask that hopefully you all take that on. Okay. And then we're going to meet. If you could please put this in your calendar. So again, it's the same link. We're going to start, we're going to do the 27th at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And again, we're going to talk about the buyer journey. If you have any questions in the meantime, or you just want to say hi, my contact information is below. If you take a screenshot of that, Arsh's contact information is also below. You can take a screenshot of Arsh's, and then we'll talk to you in 2 weeks, and I'll send you a copy of this deck. And then lastly, we're always looking for clients too. So anytime you've established value out of these particular sessions, if you would post it on LinkedIn, what value received and what you were learning, that would be very helpful to us. I would appreciate your whatever whatever social platform or mention you can give us that you feel we've earned. I would appreciate that. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day. It's 1:59, and we'll be signing off. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
So, Arsh, you could stop the recording, I think, or I can. Okay, good.